generating their own power. And, if they're generating 50, 60, 80% of their power, 100% of their power, then somebody attacking a central power plant or transfer station, it isn't really going to affect them much. Think about that. But no, they can't do that. I mean, hell, we're having troubles building, wind turbines off the coast of Massachusetts now. Even though it's over the horizon, you won't be able to see them. We know that they're there. And if we get in our yacht and we just go out a few miles over that way, the horizon will change and we'll be able to see it. And Buffy, and we don't want to see 5 miles away from the island over the horizon. That's another 10 miles out there. We don't want to see those ugly monstrosities from our yacht. Hey, those are Ted Kennedy's people, just saying. EPA, meanwhile, speaking of the EPA, and maybe the courts will do something about this too, or maybe Congress should actually do something about the EPA in doing this. EPA should call them EPA. Yeah, EPA. EPA sounds terrible when you say EPA, and you should always say it just like that too. You shouldn't say EPA. You should say EPA. Every time you say the EPA, you should actually pronounce it and call it EPA, because it sounds terrible. So the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, has released a final clean water rule. That one critical voice is warning will put all tributaries under the control of federal regulators. Basically, anything with a bed, a bank, or an ordinary high water mark, including ditches. Now, former Representative Larry Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T, it's almost like combine, wrote in the Hill, not only does it allow the EPA onto their land, but it throws the gate wide open to environmental group-led citizen lawsuits that promises to carry the rules reach beyond what even the EPA has envisioned. And trust me, that's pretty hard to do because they envision a lot. The rule itself is virtually boundless. So this means that some environmentalist wacko group could say, you know what? There's a small stream running through your yard, and you're building a shed, and we don't like your shed because you're going to put it in, a lawn tractor in there, and that lawn tractor is going to harm the environment. So we're going to sue you to keep you from building your shed. But look, this is not far-fetched. I when I lived in Keene, in Swansea, New Hampshire, there was a gentleman who wanted to fill in a part of his property. And he wanted to fill in part of his property. I mean, he's a hard-working individual. Just regular blue-collar guy. He wasn't rich, but he wanted to fill in a part of his property because he wanted to put in these garages, storage garage. And they were, they had like 15-foot doors on them. They were kind of tall. They were big. And he was actually going to rent out a couple and use a couple for his oil delivery business. There is this one environmental wench. Yes, she was a wench. She didn't even live in the town of Swansea. Not only did she not even live in the town of Swansea, New Hampshire, she didn't even live in the state of New Hampshire. She lived in Vermont, which was not going to be affected by this man putting up 5 garages on his property. But because part of the property that he wanted to fill in, not the whole part that he was filling in, but part of it, the minority part of it was also considered or construed to be wetlands and had a special type of protected flower in these wetlands. So she wanted to know what this guy was going to do to mitigate the loss of a few square feet of wetlands. And this guy was like, well, why do I have to mitigate anything? It's first of all, it's my property. Second of all, it's, we're not talking acres here. We're talking square feet. And he said, besides, you know how much is going to cost me to build swampland to comply with this kind of nonsense? This is what he was trying to tell the town fathers in meetings. And he was absolutely right. And she held him up for nearly a year until one day he said, you know what? It had the engineer's report. We can reposition these garages. And so, but he had to shrink it. So instead of 6 garages, he moved down to 5. So we can reposition the garages, and I'll lose one garage. So he's losing revenue. So that the square feet that would be mitigated, that would be lost to the fill-in, came into a lot less. And so then she finally said, well, I guess it's, kind of minute now. She finally gave in. I mean, we're talking, we're not talking like 5,000 square feet, or, we're talking less than 100 square feet. And the guy had to get rid of a garage, reposition, the other 5. So, it'd be about, 10 square feet of space now being, of wetlands being lost. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This hardworking man, blue collar man, trying to feed his family, lost a year of revenue and one of the garages permanently. Simply because this woman from the state of Vermont decided that he should not be able to do it on his own property. I mean, so this is what's going to happen with this new EPA rule. There's going to be some little brook or some little stream. It is going to have water in it, maybe 2 weeks out during the rainy season in the spring, and you're not going to be able to do anything with your property because of it. Because the EPA is going to say, "Oh no, you can't," because we can regulate it. Look, it's going to happen. Don't doubt me on this. This is called over. And there are some people that have that have this notion that sometimes it really doesn't matter who you elect, because they never roll any of this stuff back. Even when you have some people in there who supposedly are conservatives, they don't roll any of this stuff back, at least not far enough back like it should be. They don't get rid of anything. We still have the Department of Education, even though there have been presidents that have promised to get rid of it. There have been people that have promised to roll back the power of the EPA and the FCC. Nope. Ronald Reagan did eliminate a lot of regulation, but it all came back with a vengeance, especially with this current president. I mean, how many new pages of regulation have we, since his tenure as over 100,000 pages of regulation. New regulation since he took office. And you're going to try to tell me that none of this is actually going to impact. Every single bit of it is going to, one way or another, impact you and I on an everyday basis. And you're really going to feel it when somebody just decides, your neighbor, maybe your neighbor gets mad at you and calls you in. Hey, yeah, I'm calling in because my neighbor, he's trying to build a shed, and that shed is over there by that brook. The brook is only a real brook, about 2 weeks to 3 weeks out of the year in the spring and the rainy season, but it's got a lot of water in it. Yeah, and he's building a shed over by, and he's going to put a tractor over there, and that tractor is going to leak gas into that brook, And before you know it, there's going to be an EPA agent or one of their representatives or some environmentalist wacko who's now on your property, and you're going to say they're trespassing, and they're going to say, nuh-uh, because we're the EPA, and we can come onto your property because you have a piece of water that we regulate, and we want to see what you're doing to it. And then you're going to get a summons and a citation at cease and desist. You can't build that shed over by that brook. And you're looking at a dry brook and thinking, why not? Because there is water in there 3 weeks out of the year during the spring, and you've got gas and oil from that tractor in the shed, and all the chemicals in the shed, and the fertilizers, and it can get into that water and then get into the groundwater. You can't do it. We have to protect our water rights. And you don't own that water. We do. The EPA, government, we own it. So we can tell you what you can do to your property. But the shed is going to be nowhere near it. It doesn't matter. Still on your property, and it is still too close to that brook. And here's how you can do it. If you build this berm, and if you build this retaining wall, and if you put in this catch basin and this filtration system, that's going to cost me $300,000. Well, that's the only way you're going to be able to put in your shed. I'm telling you, folks, this is exactly what's going to happen. Because it already happens in one form or another to business. But now these regulations are going to come down to you and me on a private, personal, local level. And, well, all I can say is you better not doubt me. Because these people, they will bankrupt you before they give up any power of regulation. I mean, you're just gonna trust me. You're gonna have to trust me on it because they are going to come after you, whether or not you actually have the ability to pay or not, because but if you're a rancher, if you're a farmer, if you're a dairy producer, you're gonna really, even if you're a small time, if you have chickens or something on your property, the rule, Combest warned, also includes a reworking of the normal definition of adjacent, giving feds control of properties that actually abut water. And he said adjacent has been stretched to include neighboring, continuous, and bordering, while floodplain standards have been increased from 100 years to 500 years. So 500-year floodplain, a flood that only happens once every 500 years. May never have seen that flood, but now you're in that once in every 500-year floodplain, and now you come under the regulation of the EPA. Well, that sound means I am out of time for tonight. Be back here tomorrow, folks. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'm Rod Eccles. This has been the Rod Eccles Show. I'm out.